Alright, welcome guys. This is the Harry Bars channel, and what you're seeing here today for my inaugural debut is a compilation of some of my staple lifts. So starting right out here, we have the reverse hyperextension. As you can see, I'm doing these with a good deal of control, trying to pause at the bottom, trying to kill the momentum, and then reinitiate the movement using only muscle power. This is a great exercise for really building the resiliency of the lower back. We get beat up a lot by doing a lot of squats, a lot of deadlifts, so I really like this one for creating some traction in that back and hitting it from angles it's not used to being hit at. So now we're moving into weighted dips. So on this particular day, I was doing these with an additional 90 pounds slung around my waist, as you can see. And I've always loved weighted dips. Problem with these is they are often a contraindicated exercise, so essentially they're not going to be the greatest thing for everybody, especially if your shoulder health is not on point, if you have previous injuries in the shoulder, or maybe just because of how your shoulders are built. These aren't necessarily going to be a good idea for everyone. You'll know it when you try it and you start to feel some not so great sensations. That's probably a good indicator that this might be something you don't want to pursue. In my case, I love them. I feel a good stretch. Triceps have always responded well to them, so I like to throw them in. This year was more of an experimental squat day, so right off the bat, I'm using my Buffalo bar, which I love. I don't have the greatest shoulder range of motion, so this just helps me keep my arms in a position that's not so jarring for my shoulders. And the reason I say it was an experimental day is I was playing with my foot width. So you notice there, that was a pretty wide stance, and that was actually a little bit too wide. As you can see, my knees were caving in a bit, didn't like it, so ended up not going that wide for my future squats, but it was worth an experiment. And here we have some deficit deadlifts. I'm pulling from a pretty wicked deficit here. That's measured to be 4.7 inches that I'm standing on there. It's a combination of bumper plates and garden patio plates. So there I did 495 for 4 reps, then moved into some overhead presses, 135 pounds here. I think I do about 6 reps. Not necessarily the greatest lockout at the top. That's something I could probably work on, just looking at the video footage of it now. It felt good when I was doing it, just, this is why it's awesome to record yourself working out. You can give yourself a good critique, compare it to what you've seen online in terms of other people and how they do it. Moving into some incline benches. A not terrible pause on the chest. I could probably stand to go for a longer pause, but as it is right now, it's enough of a pause to show I'm in control. I'm not bouncing, so there's nothing really egregious about this. And also note the monolift attachments on my bells of steel rack. Awesome purchase. Takes a lot of the fuckery out of the bench press setup, to be honest. All right, and moving into a safety squat bar squat. Got my knee sleeves on, my Olympic weightlifting shoes. Take it pretty deep. 475 for a solid training max that day. Good. All right, and some flat benches now. Also using the monolift attachment. I'm going for a fairly wide grip with these. Trying to get a little extra chest development in doing so. That's the idea with the wider grip. Typically, the more narrow you go, the less chest emphasis, and the more you're going to be putting it into the triceps. Not that you're not working the chest. You're always going to be working the chest with any kind of bench press, but it's just what we're trying to optimize. And right now I'm trying to optimize chest, so I try to go for a wider grip. And here we have some lateral raises. I think I'm doing about 25 pounds right here. 25 pounds per arm, that is. and keep them pretty strict. That was kind of weird editing. Sorry about that, guys. Some safety squat bar box squats. So this was 185 pounds on the bar plus the tension of the green bands. And the idea with these is you want to make them fast and explosive. If you go too light, you're not using enough weight to get a good muscle stimulus. If you go too heavy, you're going to be moving that barbell too slow to be working on your peak power. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. And again, more deficit deadlifts. See, guys, the idea with the deficit deadlifts is I actually tore my distal bicep tendon off the bone about 6 months ago. So I had a wicked long rehab process. And when I started reintroducing deadlifts back into my program, I wanted to pull them from a deficit because that limits the amount of weight I can use. And therefore, ideally, it's just a little less tension going through that bicep, but not compromising the stimulus I'm trying to get. So that's the idea with those. And some rear delt raises. Here you can see I'm using the seal row attachment on my Bells of Steel rack. By the way, I'm not sponsored by Bells of Steel. I just really like their stuff. So this is a great way to keep the body English out of the movement and therefore really focus on the muscles you're trying to focus on and make sure they're doing the actual work. And moving into some cambered bar good mornings. So I was doing these for pretty heavy, about 430 pounds. That camber bar itself is 70 pounds. Don't bother trying to look up which one it is. I had it custom built by a local welder. So, and by far one of the best investments I've ever made. If you guys have never used a cambered bar, especially for good mornings, highly recommend it. It's something about it. It just makes the movement feel way more natural. Probably the way you can kind of shift the weight a little bit behind its typical center of gravity. Simply by pulling your arms in, shifts where the weight is. And it just makes it feel so much better. So I'm taking them pretty deep. And you can tell it's a heavy good morning just by how much I have to bend my knees. Obviously, the heavier the weight, the more weight is going to shift forward in front of you, in front of the center of gravity when you bend forward. And therefore, the more you have to shift your body mass behind that bar to counterbalance. So if you're going for a really heavy good mornings, it's going to kind of look like that. And look at this weird contraption, straight out of Mad Max. The most punk metal thing you've ever seen. So this is a front squat harness, and I really like this. I actually got this again because of the rehab process. I wanted to do some front squats, but I did not want to compromise the safety of my bicep. So I ended up getting this thing. And it's awesome, actually. No matter how good you get at front squats, that front rack position is never going to feel great. It's either going to kill your shoulders or it's going to choke you out. And I don't know if you're into that or not, but I'm not. So I really like that harness. And finishing off, we have a sumo with strap deadlift. This deadlift was 685 pounds. It was a personal. Does not count for any kind of competition purposes. Does not count for shit because I use straps and it was sumo. But I'm not planning to compete, so I am not too butthurt about it. I liked it, and I'm keeping the video footage in. Here's a 545-pound squat. Definitely a max. I felt pretty wonky by the time I got to the top. A little bit lightheaded. So I'm really glad I was able to rack that thing and not pass out. Which I have done before, by the way. Video will be forthcoming. And finishing off with some shoulder presses with dumbbells. So these are 75-pound dumbbells right now. And just repping them out. This was actually a pre-bicep injury by like 1 day. So sometimes I look back on this footage and I'm like, oh, that poor bastard doesn't know what's about to happen. But yeah, guys, so anyways, I am taking on clients to train in a online capacity. So shoot me your contact information. Let me know what questions you have. And I look forward to start programming for you guys. So stay tuned for videos to come. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks and take care for now.